What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast. I am your host, as always, Tony Mango, and joining me are Callum Wiggins.
Yes, I am joining.
And Robert DeFelice.
Time for some cowboy shit, boys.
Woo! We are going to get into AEW's last event of the year, outside of the fact that, Dynamite and Dark are a thing. We've got Full Gear 2019, named after the whole Hangman Page dressed up Full Gear kind of situation. Wouldn't have thought that would have been one of the things that they would have gone with for like names of pay-per-views and stuff, but over time, I've kind of warmed up to the name a little bit. Still bothers me that they don't quite have their graphics department as on point as WWE, which, I mean, you've heard me complain about WWE's graphics many, many times in the past, but here we are on the 7th, and I still can't find an actual transparent version of that logo anywhere.
Didn't I make you one?
I ended up making one, but I mean, it's still like not something that they would have uploaded, and it's still not as good as the 3D kind of graphic that they've got and all that. And man, I'm really hoping that they don't keep this trend going, because this is rough when it comes to those things. But we do have now, at the very least, a full card. That was another thing that was kind of getting under my skin a little bit. A couple days ago, we had 2 matches up on the website, 4 matches in total. Now we've got 8 of the matches, so we've got a card now, and that's what we're going to be breaking down here. The event, as far as is currently advertised, and we're going to do our predictions. We're going to get into any kind of spoilers if we kind of think that we've got any spoilers, and all the usual breakdown that we usually do here for pay-per-view point stuff. So, as always, drop your comments below. Tell us your thoughts on our thoughts and anything else you want to chime in about. Do that over on YouTube. Just hit that little subscribe button, ring that little bell for the notifications, like the video, and leave a comment. If you are on the iTunes and Stitcher feed and all the other audio-only stuff, if you are on Spotify, you can't really leave a comment, but head on over to YouTube and do it that way. So, let's get this party started here with the buy-in. That's, if for anybody who doesn't know, that's their pre-show, their kickoff, whatever you want to call it. And as far as I know, there's only going to be this one match, but maybe they'll add another one. They've had more than one in the past. But for now, it's just Dr. Britt Baker versus B. Priestley. Now, this match is coming about from something that happened at Fight for the Fallen, wherein B. Priestley injured Baker, and that's basically been just their whole feud, is you injured me, and now I want to, get back at you. I'm glad they have this match on the card, but to be perfectly honest, I'm not all that, hyped about it. I got a feeling that I'm going to be disappointed with the actual in-ring work. How you guys feeling about it?
I'm not sold on Britt Baker's in-ring ability, which is probably the biggest detriment, I think, to this match. It's obvious that they've wanted to try and promote her as one of the company's top stars. She was the first woman signed to the roster, and they've given her those big babyface matches, like again in her hometown of Pittsburgh. She got all the bells and whistles in her entrance, but between the ropes, it's still pretty evident that she's very green. And I'd hope for her sake that she's not exclusively signed to AEW, because she's not going to get enough reps to working a one match or potentially 2 match a week schedule. She needs to be working multiple nights a week to try and actually get up to speed with some of the more experienced women on the roster, like B. Priestley. So I'm a little like you, Tony. I'm a little bit unsure about the work rate in this match, but I think based on the story they've built up, it merits a place on the card still.
The most recent clip I've seen of B. Priestley was a very just scary moment in Stardom where she nearly dropped Mayu Iwatani on her head from atop of her Karana, and I'm a little worried, as you guys are, about the work rate of this match, because Baker seems to be, I don't want to say sloppy, but like a step off when I see her in the ring. And Priestley's good, but I've also seen her get a little dangerous. So I'm just a little worried about how this comes out. That being said, storyline-wise, I'm more into this than I am the title match. So there's something to be said for that. Now is as good a time as any to ask you guys, what do you think about the women's division in All Elite Wrestling overall? Because there's a lot of discussion online about the way they're presenting their women and it not being up to par.
Underwhelming. I'll get into this a little bit with the Women's World Championship match, but I don't think that there's been a single women's match that I've actually really liked. And that includes the pay-per-views and all the Dynamite episodes and all the Dark episodes. I can't think of a single one. Some of them are pretty talented, like the performers themselves. I can see, like, even somebody like a Penelope Ford, who's not some super seasoned, Sasha Banks or somebody like Natalya, where it's like you can kind of depend on them. Oh, Natalya has her bad moments and stuff here too, but I don't know. Like, I feel like somebody like that, for instance, if she were to go to the Performance Center, she would learn how to be a better wrestler. And a lot of the people that are supposed to be a big deal, I don't see anything in at all. And some of the people that are supposed to be a big deal, I can see some potential, but they haven't reached it yet. Like, I look at this roster, and Allie, for instance, I'm like, yeah, I could see her being a part of this company and whatever, but I'm not excited to see any of her matches, and I don't remember anything she's done so far that's been like, oh man, Allie's great. She, put the belt on her or something like that. Baker and Priestley, I'm getting the same kind of boat.
I think some of the criticism has been a little harsh, but it's not entirely without merit. I just feel that most of the matches have been underwhelming, especially when you go over to the NXT side of things and see there's a lot more talent there, or at least talent that's being presented in a much more favourable way. Like, you see the matches between Io Shirai and Candice LeRae, and they're a step above anything that AEW has produced, which I'm a little bit disappointed about, because on their first, the first big show of this new era, that women's 6-woman tag with all the Joshi wrestlers, I thought that was my favourite match of the night, and I still stand by that. Even though what they've done since then hasn't lived up to my expectations beyond that, I just don't feel that there's enough. Like, I don't know if there's enough storyline development, or there just isn't enough energy going into that division right now. It just isn't. It isn't clicking. But a lot of the fans seem to be into. I think they've done a good job with Riho, even though she's not exactly. We'll talk about her later when we talk about the title match. But even though she's not exactly my, like, the best in my mind in terms of in-ring stuff, she is getting over with the crowd. So that's one positive. But otherwise, it's a little bit weak.
Do you think that there are other women on their roster that should definitely have a spot on this card over Bea Priestley and Britt Baker?
Not based on the feud that they're having. So they're the only ones to have a real legitimate story between them at the moment. So I don't see anybody else stepping up, even if their written work is better than these two.
Fair enough.
Let me look at the roster right now. Their roster page is one of those things too that their website pisses me off with this whole like the things loading like they're like Flash or something. By the way, that's just one of those criticisms. We got like all these teases of like Awesome Kong being a part of something with Brandy Rhodes. I'm not.
Where's
into
Aja?
that. Yeah, she's disappeared.
No, that's unfortunate.
I'm not into the Brandy Rhodes story where she's supposed to try to be Stephanie McMahon with no power or something.
I want to talk about that later.
Shauna. Not seeing anything there. Yuka Sakazaki, she's just like another Bailey type. Nothing really there. Sadie Gibbs, I think, has something.
Hell yeah.
God, right. You just named two people you saw nothing in. I see like them actually being very good wrestlers. And then you mentioned Sadie Gibbs. It's like, okay, she can do a flip over the top rope, but she can't actually work.
I want to see her fight Bea Priestley just because I think they'd actually start beating the shit out of each other.
I think there's maybe something to Sheeta, but I haven't seen enough of her. She's only wrestled like 2 matches.
She's good.
I'm very much down on Leva Bates. I thought that she had an untapped potential when she was in NXT for a little bit, and now I'm realizing that maybe she didn't have that. That's why they didn't tap into it.
Blue pants greater than blue hair.
Nyla Rose, I feel like Nyla Rose, if there wasn't a story there, nobody would care.
I think Nyla Rose is one of the best ones they've got.
I wouldn't say she's one of the best, but she's one of the ones. Not to call her like an oddity for any sort of reason other than that, but the fact that she's got a lot of size and power, it's different to basically anyone else in the roster besides Awesome Kong.
So Big Swole and Mercedes Martinez are signed, right?
Big Swole is supposedly got offered a contract yesterday, and I haven't heard anything about Martinez. Still holding out, and I hope that they'll sign her to NXT. But more than likely, they'll just be like, you know what, WWE hasn't given you that offer, we're going to give it to you, and I wouldn't blame them. I think that she's better than a lot of the other people. They've been using this Jamie Hayter recently. I'm not a fan of her either.
I like her. I like what I've seen.
Yeah, I think she's impressive in the ring. It's just a case of trying to build these people up a little bit more. And just maybe some of the matches they put together just haven't clicked, or they just feel a bit like just putting the women on the show to have women on the show rather than to build real stories between them.
Well, I actually feel like this has more of a story element to it than a lot of the other things, to the point where I wouldn't put Baker and Priestley on the buy-in. I would have put Spears and Janela on the buy-in.
Are they not on the buy-in? I thought they would be.
I don't think that they are. I think that they're on the main card.
No, as far as we're aware, the only match that's on the buy-in is the Baker and Priestley one.
Interesting.
And to me, that strikes me more as like a pay-per-view card match based off of the amount of time that they've invested into it. But then again, maybe they want to put it on there because they just want to have it to be like, here's a women's match on the buy-in. If you're not sure if you want to join the, spend the $50 or something like that, then I don't know. Maybe that's some kind of a tactic, but I'm kind of curious how they go about a lot of these matches when it comes to like the results, because this is going to be our first real test of seeing how they plan on stretching things out. We've gotten Dynamite now for an entire month leading up to this point. Are they going to do stuff where it's like, okay, well, once we get to the pay-per-view, it ends, and that's the end of the feud, and then we move on? Or are they going to do what WWE does, where it's like, well, we're going to have a fuck finish or something, and we're going to carry that on, and like, because they don't have a pay-per-view every month. So this isn't going to be like, we can wait and then do Baker versus Priestley, or what any of the other matches on the card for that matter, at like December something or other. I'm leaning more towards the idea, at the very least I'm hoping, this is the end of the Baker and Priestley feud. And I feel like if that's the case, then Baker needs to win this. So I'm going to go with Baker.
I'm going with Baker as well. I think in terms of what they'll be doing with their stories, because they need to showcase other people and build their roster, I think they're better suited to just doing, okay, this story will end at this pay-per-view and we need to move on because we have other people we need to emphasize.
I'm going to go with Priestley to win, just due to the fact that I see a babyface women's world champion, and I don't see that changing, spoiler alert, for on this night. So I think that B. Priestley would be a fitting next challenger. You'd kind of just bill it as a number one contenders match, even though that isn't the way they've built it so far.
Yeah, they could always just go ahead and do that. Priestley's record at this point, not like undefeated or anything, but then for that matter, neither is Baker. So it's not like this is going to be the type of thing where, as long as one of them wins, then that's going to be putting them directly in the number one contender spot because they're the most obvious one or something like that. I mean, everybody's taken a loss. Everybody's gotten a win. Well, not everybody's gotten a win. Awesome Kong didn't win anything yet. Leva Bates, spoiler alert, Leva Bates wins a match on Dark.
Good for her.
I mean, the only ones that are the closest one, I would think, as far as the record goes, is either Alley or Baker. Baker's 4-2, Alley is 3-2, Priestley's 1-2. Yeah. No, Sheeta's 2-1. They could just do Sheeta against Riho or something like that too.
Well, I think, let's go further down the card. I'll talk more about Riho when we get to her match.
Yeah. We will talk about Riho in a few minutes or so, but before we get into that, let's talk about the other match that I had said I would have thought would have been on the buy-in. Shawn Spears versus Joey Janela. This feud is one of those things that I feel is a problem with AEW. They're a little disjointed, and if you look back at like the entirety of what certain people have done so far, some of these things are starting to unravel a little bit for me. Shawn Spears, for instance, he comes in and he's coming out of WWE with the whole Ty Dillinger situation, and it seems like he's going to end up being like a big deal. They put him up against Cody, he loses that match, and he's really done all that much of nothing since then. And over the past week, they basically just started to try to build this whole thing with Joey Janela. Janela, I am very down on him. I am not seeing this dude as the star that a lot of other people are seeing. To me, Janela is like, who would be a good analogy for a WWE roster side of things? Like, he's the guy that thinks, I'll put it out there, he's not Dolph Ziggler in the talent department, but he's Dolph Ziggler in the why isn't he getting pushed kind of thing. I don't think that Janela is world champion material. I don't think that Janela is somebody that's worth investing in, and I'm already over him. And this feud with Spears was just sort of like Janela put a cigarette out in Tully Blanchard's coffee. That's it? All right. I'm not feeling this. I want Spears to just beat the living shit out of Janela, look like a beast, get back on track, and that way we could have Spears be like at least an upper mid-carder heel.
Callum, what do you think about Joey Janela? Because I think that's a good place to start.
He's fine. I
Fair
think
enough.
that he's like Tony says, I don't see him being world championship material, but I don't think that's what his purpose in AEW is to be. He's the hardcore spot guy, the guy that will be involved in a lot of crazy matches and moments where, like, if they had a hardcore championship or a 24/7 thing, he'd be the guy essentially running that entire division, because he is a very innovative thinker, I believe. He might even be better as a booker than he is as a wrestler, but I'm certainly not in a state of wanting to give up on him at this point in time. I just think that he hasn't found anything to sink his teeth into yet, and this feud with Shawn Spears I don't think will be it either. Again, it's been thrown together quite quickly. I'm probably more down on Shawn Spears than I am on Joey Janela. I'm starting to buy into the theory that a lot of people are having, that the 10 thing was just the 10 thing, and that he doesn't have a lot of substance to back it up.
He strikes me as, and I get that this was the gimmick, but he really is that, almost like Kurt Hawkins. You know how Kurt Hawkins is like solid, and yeah, he can put on a good match with anybody and then lose and make that person look better. That seems to be what Shawn Spears is best suited for. And I think it would have helped if he'd beaten Cody at All Out, and maybe even been utilized on the early Dynamites. But because they kind of fed him to Cody, they had Moxley go over him pretty convincingly, it sets him back. And now it's like, yeah, he lost a little bit, but he still got Tully, so you're still going to want to watch him because he's still got Tully Blanchard. I think he needs a win here, but I'm going to go opposite of Priestley and Baker and say this one continues going forward, because I think there's going to be something here with Janela and Tully, and they're going to try to play off of that whole Janela makes the old wrestlers all curmudgeonly because he's Joey Janela and he's not a traditionalist.
I'd say that it's probably likely that Shawn Spears would win this one. I think Janela's role is not to, like we've been saying, not to challenge for the World Championship, but just to be a guy who entertains people with his crazy antics when he does get involved in those sort of matches and situations. So he can pretty much afford to rack up a few losses here and there. And Spears is definitely more in need of an actual, like, legitimate victory on a pay-per-view. And for that matter, like, it'd be good to see a bit more of Tully Blanchard, because I just don't think he's been utilised well enough since the first couple of weeks of his feud with Cody. Ever since then, he's just been a guy walking with Shawn Spears to ringside.
Well, that, to me, that plays into an overarching issue with AEW, and that's some of these things just really feel like a love letter to Dusty's heyday, and they don't know what to do beyond some of those things. Like, Blanchard came in, I'm so smart, nobody knows the Rhodes family more than me, but you had Cody beat him, and then you couldn't even, like, transition into a feud with Dustin or something. You just, okay, we got that Rhodes, Blanchard, checkbox out of the way, let's just move on.
I'm glad you mentioned the whole, like, references to the Dusty and the heyday of WCW type of thing, because every episode of Dynamite so far, there's been something that's made me get that impression, where they're almost just sort of like, if they could, they would say, let's buy out all of the WCW stuff that we can and just be WCW again. And I've mentioned this before, but I really feel like there's the different tentacles of this business are going to come to a head at some point, because Cody, I feel, wants to just be WCW. The Young Bucks want to be Ring of Honor. Kenny Omega wants to be New Japan. Tony Khan wants to be WWE. And
no.
it's
Well, he doesn't want to be WWE. That was a train wreck.
WWE? What?
You said,
World Wrestling All-Stars,
like you said WWE.
Did it sound like that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean, though? Like, it feels like that's the case, and I can see some of those elements being a good hybrid, more so than Evans and Angelico. Angelico, not Angelico. But whenever something comes up about, like, the Tully Blanchard type stuff and whatever like that, I just kind of feel like it's I mean, I've been seeing a lot of, like, OK Boomer stuff, and I kind of feel some of that's coming out. Maybe just a little bit of inside joke about Jim Ross, Boomer Sooner, but I don't know. That bugs me. And Tully Blanchard being by the side of Shawn Spears, I think is actually a negative right now. He's not helping me think that Shawn Spears means more. He's just reminding me that Tully Blanchard was the guy.
I think one of the things that I feel is a positive about AEW is they seem like they're very receptive, and they listen to, not so much like they just listen to what the fans want and then like what they're saying on Twitter and then just immediately adapt based on that. But I feel like what they hear valid criticisms and they're trying in time to adjust to it. Whereas people lodge these sort of complaints to WWE of like, oh, we hate the idea of them going back to Saudi Arabia, and then they're so tone deaf they announce that they're going to be going back to Saudi Arabia twice a year instead. It's like, with WWE, it feels like it just bounces off, whereas AEW, and we might see over time whether this does prove to be the case, but it does feel a little bit more like, okay, we're listening, we're taking what we want, we're not going to obviously listen to everyone's feedback, or not going to take everyone's feedback on board, because some people are just complaining for the sake of complaining. But we're going to listen, see what people are saying, adapt, try and move forward to try and produce the best quality content possible. So I have a bit more faith in their ability to do that. And I think even though there are maybe like competing ideologies about what people want AEW to be, I think they'll eventually reach consensus based on the first few months of, or maybe even like the first year of them operating as a company, they'll choose a direction and stick to it.
I would hope so, because I really do feel like we know who the EVPs are. And as Tony said, it's very clear the different directions that the EVPs take the brand, and it really just feels like a odd mix and match kind of promotion right now.
So I am standing firm on my idea that Spears needs to beat Janela. And I think if Janela wins, I can already kind of write off Spears as never really turning out to be all that much. I'm not going to be getting invested in him if he's going to fight for him against Moxley for a number one contender spot. I'd be like, all right, well, Moxley wins. Like, yeah. Whereas Janela, maybe in the future they do some kind of a McFoley-ish type of story where he's been beat to crap, and if he gets people's respect that he could do something or whatever. But I'm not going to be the one that's championing that, because I think that he's not really all that to be cracked up about. So I think for the sake of Spears having more potential, I really hope that they give him the win.
Yeah, I think Spears will win.
Yeah, me too.
Awesome. Hopefully they do too.
So we're going to be talking on the post show about how Janela beat him in 3 seconds.
Yeah, probably. If that happens, at the very least, give me something to take away with. Give me like that they beat the hell out of him after the match with the chair or something. But let's see about that. One thing that I think that we could all kind of agree on is that the World Tag Team Championship is probably not going to change hands. We do have a triple threat match. They're calling them 3 ways. SoCal Uncensored, that's Frankie, Kazarian, and Scorpio Sky, while Christopher Daniels is out of action, versus Pentagon and Fenix of the Lucha Brothers, and Isiah, Kassidy, and Marq Quen of Private Party. What did you guys think about this whole bronze medal match thing that they had done?
I thought it was a good way of extending the tournament a little bit further. Just to, let's say, okay, these are the 2 beaten semi-finalists. We'll give them an opportunity to be added to this match, because they both have won like a significant match against another team to get into the tournament. So having them fight it out to see who would join this match in a triple threat, I thought was a good way of doing it.
I liked it. I don't like the Dark Order. I'm glad Private Party won.
Yeah, there you go. That's one of the things I was going to say.
I think the Dark Order experiment started, and it's just like I hope it doesn't turn into the Forgotten Sons, where it didn't work immediately and then they just stuck with it for the next year and it still hasn't worked. I hope if they do something with them, then it has to be something not so much radically different, but noticeably different than what they started with, to make them seem a little bit more interesting, or they need to just scrap the whole idea and see what they can work with these 2 guys.
It's a shame you can't merge people, because man, if you took the Dark Order having the Creepers, I think they're called, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
So if you give me the Creepers and you give me a guy in a mask, but between the 2, the guy in the mask is Stu Grayson, and you get rid of Evil Uno entirely, then for that one character, I could be like, okay, that might be a decent enough character. But holy shit, am I not into the Dark Order?
I think part of the problem is that, let's start with their names. It's Evil Uno and Stu Grayson. Just Stu, you know Stu. Average guy Stu.
It's not a very intimidating name. It could be somebody's accountant. I'm Stu Grayson here. We're going to check out your finance report. And Evil Uno just sounds like it's like the boss on Crash Bandicoot or something.
Well, because they were the Super Smash Brothers. They were originally Player Uno and Player Dos.
Really? So then why is he Evil Uno?
Because now they're evil.
I do like that Private Party one, though. I think that the bronze medal thing was an interesting... At first, I didn't know that that's what it was, and I was just like, why are they calling it a bronze medal match? Are they actually winning a bronze medal? And it took me a little bit to kind of realize what the hell was going on, but I kind of feel like this is something I'm going to repeat later on with the women's match and the world title match. It's too early for a title to change hands, so I'm not as invested into it because I'm thinking, well, if a title does change hands, it's too soon, and since it probably won't, then I'm just sort of waiting for SoCal Uncensored to retain.
Elephant in the room, with them only having about 4 to 5 episodes of TV before the pay-per-view, why didn't they just crown champions on the pay-per-view?
It probably would have been the smarter decision. I think it's one of those things that I've spoken about when talking about why they do certain matches on WWE TV as opposed to on the pay-per-views. It's because pay-per-view doesn't matter as much anymore, and it's slightly more of a bigger deal for AEW because they have more money attached to their pay-per-view events. So you need to try and convince people to buy the event. But I think they're relying a lot on the Chris Jericho Cody match, the John Moxley Kenny Omega match to draw them in. And so they decided to put a title match on TV to get the rating, to try and build up the ratings for that show. So it's a tough balancing act of trying to make both pay-per-views worth spending your money on to buy, and then also you're in the middle of trying to get as many ratings as possible to try and build up your audience. Because if you don't build up your audience TV, who's going to be buying your pay-per-views? So it's a very, very difficult balancing act. It's why most people, like armchair bookers, can't actually run a wrestling company.
Well, I get that pay-per-view doesn't mean as much and TV needs to start being special again, but at the very least, can we look at pay-per-views like season finales and treat them like they're something that we need to see? Because honestly, Riho and Nyla Rose could have been a hell of a match for the pay-per-view, and they could have built up a nice story. And if you just stretched the tag team tournament out like 1 to 2 weeks, just by having, the 8th team, when you have quite a few leftovers, you could have just had this pay-per-view mean something. It could have been, all right, now and this is cheesy, forgive me, now we're kicking it into full gear because we're like a full promotion. Now we have all of our champions in place. You could have, yes, and I'm being an armchair booker. I don't know. I just feel like there's more that could have been done with this show.
Well, the tag team situation to me, I feel, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's the Young Bucks are kind of in charge. And I feel like the Young Bucks are very much Ring of Honor, which isn't as much story-based. It's more so just that guy would be good against that guy. And I'm a little bit worried that that's going to be the case with the tag teams, where we've seen the Lucha Brothers interact with SoCal Uncensored, and they're trying to tell a little bit of a story, but it's not really much of a story. The story was basically the Lucha Brothers attacked him once. It's not, oh my God, give the person a fucking award for writing. And Private Party's really just kind of like, we're a tag team and we want to win. So if everything just essentially becomes, we're people who want to win a match, there's nothing to sink your teeth into, particularly knowing I've just seen Lucha Brothers versus SoCal Uncensored, so that's not really something I'm like clamoring to just be like, my God, I can't wait to repeat that. That's always going to be the case for me. Rematches never translate as well in my mind. I'm already want to move on to something else, but this at least has Private Party in the mix, that maybe that'll be a little bit different, and maybe it'll be like SoCal Uncensored and Private Party can get a little bit in there and Lucha Brothers sit on the side for part of it. I think it'll be a good match, but I also feel like people are going to overrate it, and I might be disappointed with it too. And for that matter, I think SoCal Uncensored is going to retain.
If the titles are going to change hands, and I don't think they will, but I would think it's never going to be a bad time to put the belts on Private Party. They're over, they're young, they're enthusiastic, they are everything that if you want to be an alternative, you should build your promotion around. And if there's going to be a change of hands, it should be them. But that being said, I think SCU retains.
See, I'm in the complete opposite camp of the belief that if you are going to change hands, it has to go to the Lucha Brothers. Because
Why?
they are the best tag team on your promotion. They should be the champions. I not so much SoCal Uncensored makes sense to be the first champions because they did the whole underdog story of the guy who was meant to be in their tag team had to get pulled out due to injury, and Scorpio Sky filled in and has become like one of the a great underdog babyface as a result of it. But even though Private Party are great, they're still just spot guys, and that's fine. It's like really good for the time being because it's getting a lot of eyes on their matches. But the Lucha Brothers are a well-oiled machine. Had trouble saying that. Not very well-oiled in my speech, but but I just think that like Fenix in particular is on a level that not many people can touch at the moment with his acrobatic skills and just overall ring work. And Pentagon Jr. has a great level of charisma that I think if eventually when SoCal Uncensored does drop the titles, it should be to them or some other team that's got a bit more reps under them, whether it's Santana or Ortiz or something to that effect. And Private Party should be an underdog story that develops over time. But I agree with you guys in thinking that SCU is going to retain here because they only got the titles a couple of weeks ago, and it would be a bit odd for them to lose it straight away. But maybe if they were, but it's one of those matches where if they were to lose it straight away, then you kind of, even though there's the obvious side of it, like, oh, they're just changing titles, they're playing hot potato with titles already. It's also, and adds to the element of you can't predict what AEW is going to do, which can be interesting.
Here's why I don't want Lucha Brothers to win it if they are going to drop the titles. I feel like the next champions after this are Santana and Ortiz, and I saw Santana and Ortiz enough in Impact, and that those matches are always good with the Lucha Brothers, but I saw that match enough. I'd like to see something fresh.
I kind of feel like maybe SoCal Uncensored needs to lose it to Santana and Ortiz, and they need to lose it to Lucha Brothers. That's kind of the direction that I feel they need to go in.
Well, no, I think it should go babyface heel. So SoCal Uncensored to Santana or Ortiz, to the Young Bucks or Private Party or whoever, and then to the Lucha Brothers. I don't think they should be blurring the lines between babyfaces and heels that much at this point.
Well, you think Lucha Brothers are heel?
Well, they took out Christopher Daniels and gave him a package pile driver on the ramp, so I'm pretty sure they're heel.
Yeah, they're not exactly nice guys.
See, I don't know. I think of them as baby faces more because SCU, they're more like bullying the Jurassic Express. I mean, they are kind of baby faces in this.
Like, but they also shook their hands and hugged them after that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they are playing with the whole heel face thing. Like not many people are strictly
Jericho's a heel. Everybody else can.
Yeah, Inner Circle, they're all heels. Shawn Spears has not been a babyface.
Yeah.
It seems like Kip Sabian's a heel. I don't know for sure about that, but they do seem to kind of be sticking him like that. Michael Nakazawa was definitely a babyface, but outside of calling somebody the bastard and saying 100% heel for somebody like Pac, I mean, SCU and Lucha Brothers to me feel kind of like the tweener side.
I think
everybody knows the biggest babyface is Orange Cassidy, though.
I think that they do mix and match these people a little bit. They don't stick strictly to one side's heel, one side's baby faces. They do throw in the shades of grey idea. But I think it's quite definitive with the way that the SoCal Uncensored runs and championship was booked that they're baby faces at this point in time. And that the Lucha Brothers, in trying to stop them from doing that on the heel side, and Private Party are baby faces because they're just two young guys that are living their best life at the moment.
Yeah, in the context of this match, Private Party's the babyface, SCU, tweener. I would say tweener, and Lucha Brothers heel.
Yeah.
At least for this match. But we're all going SCU. Wait, no, we're not going all SCU. I'm going SCU.
No, I think we're all going SCU.
Yeah, we're all sticking mainly to the idea that they won't drop the titles 2 weeks after winning them.
It wouldn't be the craziest thing, though. If it happened, I wouldn't be entirely shocked.
I think this is the one title they can do that with.
Yeah.
Because I know I say it's just the tag team titles, but it's a case of there's so many good tag teams in AEW that you probably should be giving each of them a bit of a turn with the title at some point. And will probably be the title that's most frequently swapped over between people.
Yeah, there's much more of a chance that title changes hands than the Women's World Championship. Riho, for instance, is going up against Emi Sakura. Or Sakura? This is Sakura, right?
Emi Sakura.
Yeah, so she is not beating Riho. Not at all. And
but she will entertain us in her attempts with her Freddie Mercury-inspired offense.
I am so down on this match. You guys have no idea how little I care. Riho is like... I don't think Riho should have ever been champion. I don't think Riho is at the level that they keep projecting her as being at. There's a move that she did on this past Dynamite. She was going for like the 619. And that was one of the most ridiculous looking things that I've seen. She slowed down so much and very clearly did not want to hit whoever she was up. It might have been Emmy. I don't remember for sure. That was so bland and so like indie botch level to me that this is the type of stuff that keeps happening with the women's division, in particular in AEW, where I'm like, God damn, this match is just not good.
Tony, did you watch the match on NXT this week where Tainara Conti and Santana Garrett walked towards the ropes in a like?
Oh, that wasn't the best match on that card either. Believe me, that they could do a lot better when it comes to that too. But that's Tainara and Santana Garrett, whereas this is the champion.
That's fair.
And as much as I like reminding me that "We Will Rock You" was a good song, I see nothing else with Sakura that's like standing out to me. And this feels like exactly the type of match that I should already write out is going to be a low point on this card. And I just want a new champion already. I don't like Riho being the figurehead of this whole thing.
This is one of those situations where I look at it and think I need to just take myself out of the situation. Because even though I'm not a fan of Riho, it's very, very obvious that more people than me are a fan of Riho. She's incredibly popular. She gets a lot of attention. By any accounts of how the ratings go up in terms of the female audience when Riho's competing, it's an indication that she's connected with the people that she's supposed to connect with. And maybe that's not me, maybe that's not Tony or Rob or anybody else on the more male persuasion who's watching this. But if that's not the audience they're aiming for with their women's division, then that's kind of a so be it type argument. Riho's not my favourite wrestler, but if she's proving very popular and the crowd is into her, then I see no reason why she shouldn't be the champion and why she shouldn't continue to be champion. I have at least some hope for this match being better than what we've seen so far, in the fact that Sakura is the trainer of Riho. Like, she was the one that originally trained her. So they must have wrestled each other thousands of times. They must be very experienced and capable working together. So I'm going to hold out hope that this one is a stronger, more physical match than we've seen before. I just want to see Riho strikes look more effective. If they had that with a bit more like physicality behind them that you would see more typical of the Joshi style, then I would be a lot more into her than I am right now. But I hold out more hopes for this match than I have done with some other matches with the AEW's women's division.
I think they're pushing the Joshi too hard. I really do. And it's like, I love Joshi wrestling. I think they're banking it on this weird, like, isn't this cool? Doesn't this remind you of when, not to beat this horse again, but WCW had the cruiserweights Isn't that so cool? We got international talent. Yes, it's good. Riho's good. They keep booking the Joshi together with just the idea of, well, these are the Joshi, so it's going to be good. So you don't need a story. Up yours if you want to start. I want to see two women in a rivalry like Baker and Priestley with the championship on the line. I'm not as down as Tony is about some of the botches I've seen because maybe they're just nervous because they're playing to a new audience. And I am in Callum's court as that I think they will have a good match because they know each other very well and they've trained each other, and whatever time they get should be good. But going forward, I'd like to see them move away from this. Well, we've got Joshi. Start using some of the women that you have on your roster that are more homegrown.
Is there a more underwhelming person's theme than Sakura?
Is it just We Will Rock You?
No, because it starts off like that, and then it goes into what sounds like the loading screen of a video game.
I don't know. I'm honestly not very familiar with most of their entrance music yet, so it's kind of just passes me by. I'm sure I'll develop some sort of opinion when I watch their match on the upcoming show.
Yeah, keep that in mind and try to listen to her theme, because it's very you start off with that bum bum bah, and you're like, I'm gonna get in, and then it goes into, I don't remember exactly how it goes, but it's just sort of like, oh crap, now we're gonna know this. All right, somebody paid $20 for the royalty-free music.
I think the main issue with the utilization of the Joshi women on the AEW side of things is, well, the big problem is that WWE has the three best Joshi women's wrestlers pretty much the last 10 years, all employed by them in Asuka, Kairi Sane, and Io Shirai. And if those three were wrestling for AEW, nobody would be complaining about, there's too much Joshi wrestling or stuff like that, because they would just be having killer matches all the time, because that's all they do is have killer matches. I've gone more into the appreciation of the fact that if they were booked correctly, those three would be the biggest stars in the entire women's division for WWE. So I don't have any real issue with them pushing people that wrestled for Stardom or a lot of the other women's Japanese promotions, because they have a lot of character and personality. We haven't seen a lot of it in terms of a rivalry side of things, but the way that those promotions are booked and the way they're presented, you have to have a lot of character and effervescence about you in order to stand out. And so I think in that way they're a little bit stronger than some of the other characters that they have on the show, because Ali, I've seen, has a lot of personality from her work in Impact, but I haven't seen enough of it in AEW yet. And certain other people, I just feel like Sadie Gibbs, for instance, is kind of, okay, you're athletic, but what is it? What is there about you? Whereas with these ones, with Riho and Emi Sakura, I can't say that I understand their characters or their motivations inside out, but I still look at them and think, okay, these guys look fun. It's just by looking at them and just looking at the Freddie Mercury outfit and the just the outfits and the presentation they put behind them, I just say, okay, this is fun. Even if I'm not super convinced by the actual match being super physical or super entertaining, I just feel going into it like, oh yeah, this is going to be an interesting showpiece. Whereas just some of the other matches feel like, okay, this is just a match. Whereas this, I feel it's more of a performance.
I can't imagine that I'm going to love this, but I hope I'm wrong. But I do say that out of all the matches on this card, this is the easiest one to predict.
Yeah,
We're all going Riho.
Yeah, Riho win.
Yeah.
I'm going Riho wins. There's a brief hug. Hey, look, it's Awesome Kong, and she wrecks shit over the 90-pound champion and Emi Sakura, because it seems to be that they're really gonna go with Brandy and Kong, which I'm all right with, even if the transition to this was no transition and Brandy just showed up looking possessed one day. Thoughts on that? Thoughts on Brandy being the
Ugh,
heel authority figure already?
I fucking hate it.
I don't. I mean, I'm not super sold on it, but it's the idea of the fact that she doesn't have power. Because realistically, she's the chief brand officer. So she does hold some power, but she doesn't hold power over the wrestlers. So in that sense, I can kind of compartmentalize it a little bit to say, like, okay, so on the actual roster side of things, she's just a performer, and she'll do whatever work she does on the branding side of things to help AEW progress, but that doesn't impact the way the roster's booked in the same way that Cody and the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega have actual control over the different divisions. So she can just be the character that she wants to be, and she can use Kong as her way to get to the top that way. It's not great, but it's a little bit less obnoxious than when Stephanie was like a prominent character on TV.
Here's my issue with it. When you're playing up the idea that people can be both a heel and a babyface depending on the feud and depending on the situation, it's a little hard to get adjusted to, but I like it. Like, I like the idea, for instance, that MJF is a dickweed, but he's friends with Cody, so he's going to help out Cody because why wouldn't he help out his buddy? I'm cool with that. What I don't like is Brandy will come out and she'll be the chief brand officer. And she'll talk about, oh, we signed this great talent and we did whatever, and this is great, and we're all inclusive, and we started this thing, and this is amazing, and also kind of like rah-rah positive type stuff. And then on another day, she'll come out and she'll just be like Cody's wife, and she's supportive, and you're supposed to cheer for her, and she's very like normal. She's just Brandy Rhodes. She comes out there with Pharaoh, whatever it is, in any of those situations. And then they run a vignette and she's, for some reason, wearing this veil and acting like she's like psychotic or something. Bullshit. Don't do that. Make it to where you have her be a normal person who wants the power and all that kind of stuff. Sure, fine. But don't try to make me think that, okay, well, in the context of the women's division, she's totally crazy and psycho and unhinged. Yet, a minute later, she might come out and just be like smiling and waving to the crowd.
She's definitely going too far on that side of things.
It's very stupid. And they could have just done this with a little less of like the crazy type of touch, and it still could have worked, because their idea of her saying that she used to get bullied, which is still like kind of ridiculous to me, because it's like, oh, I fully agree with the side of what she's trying to criticize. Oh, you're just another pretty face, whatever. Yeah, you probably were gorgeous your whole freaking life, and I doubt that everybody was sitting there going like, let's pick on Brandy, you know what I mean? Like, look at you sitting over there looking all hot, or whatever. But like, if you want to do the story of who's the bullies now, and I'm in charge, and now I can do that, why are you crazy? You can be the same thing and not be like dumping wine all over yourself or whatever the fuck she was doing the one thing. I hate that. And if they just bring this out and they have like Awesome Kong attack Riho, and the whole story is Brandy's upset that Riho beats Awesome Kong in some future match, I'm completely checked out.
Fair enough.
I will agree that it does start to feel a little bit at the moment that Brandy's taking advantage of the fact that her husband's one of the EVPs of the company and is having fun with her character a bit too much, even if it doesn't make sense. So hopefully it kind of just shifts into a bit more of a normal, like just power hungry person who has this monster heel behind her to do her dirty work for her. And I kind of hope that in that regards, Brandy doesn't become the women's champion, but she's just there to support Kong to become the champion instead. At least until like we have a bit more of see her character like within the ring. But I think it would be pretty clear direction to go in of having Awesome Kong be the one that eventually dethrones Riho. But we still have to see that Kong versus Kong match. So
Yeah, well, Tony apparently says that she's disappeared, so
They
I
haven't
guess
shown her a single time since then.
no,
is she still on the roster page?
Nope.
That's fucking disappointing, man.
Yeah, she's not listed at all on the actual like website. Now she probably is still a part of the company, and maybe they even get around this by doing something like that. Maybe it's like Kong attacks both of them after the match, and then Aja Kong is the one that saves the day. Maybe that's how they get around that.
they're good. I mean, I don't think that Aja Kong will ever be part of the company permanently, because I think that her home is probably in Japan, and so that's where she's going to be working and doing the majority of the stuff that she does. But she could be someone that just comes in on, like, who has an affiliation with AEW and will come in occasionally for a one-off match every now and again.
Well, they also haven't said when their next event's going to be.
No.
So
It's gonna be in
we don't
February.
know. I would
That's
assume
my guess.
probably. Yeah, because, I mean, the last couple of teams, they seemed, outside of the fact that Fyter Fest and Fight for the Fallen were like 2 weeks apart or whatever, it seems like they're going on like a 2 to 3 month kind of range. So by that rationale, if they keep that up, it would be like the end of January, sometime in February. But they got to know, end of January, Royal Rumble. It's not going to be a good idea for them to do like the day before the Royal Rumble or something like that. So either they do it like the week before Rumble, or they do it like the week or two after Rumble. And I could see them doing something like Riho gets saved by Aja Kong, and then they set up like Kong versus Kong at whatever that event is. Or maybe they even kind of skip that. Maybe they do Kong versus Kong, if this is the case, of course, because it might not. Awesome Kong might not have anything to do with this. Maybe they even just do that on Dynamite, and we get Riho versus Kong at, I don't know, whatever the fuck they call it, February Fest. Something. I don't know what.
Super Brawl, the way this is going.
Well, they would try to get Super Brawl, and the WWE would be like, nope, and then they would remind you of how great this one Super Brawl thing was from 1992 or whatever it was. But I'm not all that into Riho as champion. If a title were to change hands, it's not going to be this one. So this match is just like a blah to me, and I hope I'm wrong. Let's go with Young Bucks versus Proud and Powerful. Ortiz and Santana. That name is official now. They put it up on a graphic, so it's
I
Proud
did
and
that.
Powerful.
Thank God.
Yeah. I don't know much about Ortiz and Santana. I've only seen them wrestle the one time in the tag team match, so I'm not thrilled about this, but I'm also not against it. I'm basically ignorant of the situation.
How
I
are
think
you
it'll be good.
not like, yeah, it's clear that you haven't seen them, because this should be fantastic. And
It could be. I mean, like, that's the thing is, I'm not against this match at all. But I don't have anything to go off of to be like, oh my God, I can't wait to see. You know, like when, for instance, this is a weird random allusion to draw, but it popped in my mind. After seeing Captain America the Winter Soldier, the Russo brothers being announced as the ones that are going to take over the Avengers for Infinity War and Endgame, I was like, oh man, that's going to be great. That's going to be even better than when Joss Whedon did it. Ortiz and Santana, I haven't seen much of them, so it's kind of like, all right, well, everybody says that they're good, so this is probably going to be good. But I'm not like, this is going to be the best thing ever, and I can't wait for it. I'm assuming lots of super kicks. I'm assuming it's going to be a lot of energy, and I'll probably like it quite a bit. And I'll probably also think that it's overrated, because I think people will cream themselves over it, and I'll be like, yeah, it's good. Yeah.
It should be a very good to great match, just due to the people involved. I like the hype video they did for Proud and Powerful on the like the countdown show they did. They have a lot of personality and a lot of vibrancy about them in terms of their promo ability, and they seem to have a lot of heart about them, which is quite odd considering the fact that they're on the heel group when they're talking about how they've come up from nothing and they'll take what's theirs, and they're telling everyone that they should be proud of who they are because they're proud of who they are, which seems like a very babyface message to send. But regardless of all that, they've done some good work in the Inner Circle. It's clear that they've kind of just been recruited as Chris Jericho's hired help in the tag team division to be like the Inner Circle's resident tag team. So hopefully they put in a good showing against the Young Bucks. I'm pretty sure they've done this match together before, so they should have a good grip on each other by now. But I can't recall seeing it myself, so I'm looking forward to seeing what the two teams produce.
I believe the only time they did this match is the Chris Jericho Cruise, ironically, and they did not air it. So this will be the first time visible for the masses, the Young Bucks versus Santana and Ortiz. I think it'll be really good. Here's where we got to get into another, I don't want to say it's a flaw because it was a matter of time, but the announcement of AEW, the utilization of Dynamite, I'm not as thirsty for Young Bucks and Omega content and matches as I once was. Because, in New Japan, you only wrestle ever so often, and Ring of Honor had them wrestling sporadically as well. Seeing them every week, it's not as much of like, this is going to be good just because it's fresh Young Bucks. So now they've got to switch it up so they can keep being fresh. That, to me, will be the interesting challenge.
I kind of feel like that's where wrestling doesn't have the same kind of connection as a lot of other sports. There's sort of almost like three types of things going on. Like it's sort of weird. If you look at quote unquote sports, because wrestling, some people don't constitute it a sport. Football, for instance, or baseball, it's almost the fact that it happens constantly that people are gravitating toward. It's like it's a team. It doesn't matter who's playing in the game. It's just the team. So if you were a Packers fan or you were an Orioles fan or whatever it is, doesn't matter which of the sports. The same thing for basketball too and hockey. But like those main kind of things like that, it's just a matter of I want to watch the Flyers. And you might not see every game, but you don't really care. You're only interested in the end game of the whole situation. And you just like football. So you'll watch any football game and it doesn't matter. Something like boxing or UFC, you might be a fan of a particular fighter, but you're mostly watching it just to watch whatever is happening, and the people don't matter. And you get into somebody like a Mayweather, and people are like, oh my God, I got to see the Mayweather fight because I didn't see one for the past 3 years or whatever the fuck it was. And that's one fight. People watch it. It's 2 seconds long, and that's the end of it. And I don't know. I really don't understand how that ends up being a big deal that people spend a whole bunch of money for. But that's another story for another day.
That's why it's good that wrestling is scripted.
Well, that's where like the Young Bucks, if you were really into them, because they were an attraction that you could see every once in a while, then going through these different indie promotions and stuff, it would be like the Young Bucks wrestle for Ring of Honor and they're wrestling all the time, but they're not on the same product and the same loop, fighting the same people, that kind of thing. And when you start getting into the WWE side of things, then you run into the situation of being like, oh my God, how many times we've seen this match? How many times people are asking for Seth Rollins to go away? And Rollins was like this big savior. Everybody loves him at the beginning of the year. Just in this past couple of months, people are like, oh, I'm sick of this kind of thing. At some point, that's going to happen with the Young Bucks. It's going to happen with Omega and the best bout machine type of people who would pop up for a New Japan show, and you'd watch one New Japan show every couple of months or something, and it's the best thing ever because you saw Omega wrestle, or the Young Bucks wrestled, or whatever. It's going to lose steam quite a bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's the problem. One of the main problems that's crippled WWE over the years is all their wrestlers are so overexposed.
I was trying last night to calculate how much wrestling there really is, and between AEW is even really freaking pushing it now. They got 2 hours of Dynamite, an hour of Dark, however long the whole Being the Elite and other YouTube content can be. And they announced this countdown thing, and I looked at it, and it was 40 minutes long. It was like 37 minutes long or something. I was like, I'm not watching that shit. It's going to be mostly promo stuff leading up to it, whatever. They announced the Spears and Janela match through there, and thankfully I got that through news reports. But, like, I was like, my God, I just watched 2 hours of NXT, 2 hours of Dynamite, and I mean, you throw in WWE in there, which of course AEW isn't responsible for, but AEW wants me to watch 3, 4, 5 hours worth of material a week. WWE wants me to watch 3 hours of Raw, an hour of main event, which nobody watches in the world, an hour of NXT, 2 hours of NXT, an hour of 205 Live, an hour of NXT UK, an hour of WWE Backstage, an hour of The Bump. I'm like, am I really supposed to, between these two companies, watch about 22 hours worth of fucking material each week? So, I don't know. It's all overexposure, and something like the Young Bucks versus Proud and Powerful, if they wrestle the exact same match that every Young Bucks match is, I think I'm going to mentally check out.
Well, you have to expect that they're going to wrestle similar to that. I hope they up the aggression, feeling like maybe they got the spotty stuff out of the way with the Lucha Brothers, where it was just like, let's just go out there and have a car crash. I think it'll be really good, if not the best match of the night. But then you get this weird thing with AEW and like the rules and tag team matches, which can sometimes just be balls to the wall. So if there is no structure and it starts to just unravel, you might end up mentally checking out anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be good. I don't know. It seems like we've crapped on the company a lot during this podcast, but it's a new brand that doesn't really seem like it knows what it is. So I feel like it's important to call attention to that for now.
You two have been cheating on the company.
For that matter, I do think that
I said we.
Proud and Powerful versus Young Bucks are probably going to be one of the best matches of the night.
Here's what I want to say about the Young Bucks situation. If you go into the Young Bucks match and hope that it's going to be slightly different than a Young Bucks match, it's like going into a Brock Lesnar match and expecting him not to throw any German suplexes.
Well, right. That's what Tony hopes every time.
So if you don't enjoy Young Bucks matches, or you get checked out during Young Bucks matches, the likelihood is you're probably going to get checked out in this match, because they wrestle their style and a lot of people like it. It's not for everybody, but if it's for more people than it is like not for certain other people, then they're going to keep doing it.
I think it depends on the placement of the card. If this happens pretty close after the World Tag Team title match, then it's going to be a problem. But if this is like after Spears and Janela, then I might be willing to be like, you know what, just give me a bunch of flips.
I think they'll space it out a bit. So I'm almost certain they wouldn't put themselves very close to the other tag team match, because based on like actual in-ring work, both those matches should be two of the best matches on the night. So you want to keep them a little bit more separated.
I think ideally I'd have this come after the women's title match, because I'm the most down on that out of all that, and this might pick me up. For that matter, if we're talking who's going to win, I think that Proud and Powerful have to win.
Yeah, I think the Elite eats quite a lot of defeat on Saturday.
Eat defeat. Eat defeat.
That's right.
Let's talk about some plugs really quickly. If you are interested in picking up, I don't know, maybe I'll make it like an Eat Defeat shirt or something like that, then I'll put that up on TeePublic and Redbubble. So the merchandise side of things you'll find over on there. I'm less willing to try to mess around with the AEW stuff, because I know that they're very much more into the merch. So I got a feeling that like as soon as I put something up, it'll get taken down. But I am taking ideas. So if anybody does have any design concepts that they think that I should try to work on, then, toss them my way and I'll see if I can put something up out there. And if it does end up showing up, it'll be on the TeePublic and Redbubble for Smark Out Moment. And I've got the other shops for A Mango Tees and for Fanboys Anonymous, and I'll mention them in a little bit later on too. But let's go to Hangman Adam Page versus Pac. Still hate that name. And I'm kind of iffy about this one. Page has fallen down for me. Pac is Pac's Pac. I liked him as Neville. He's a good wrestler. Not really 100% digging the character, but I kind of feel like this is going to be just a filler mid-card match and nothing to get too crazy about. How you guys feeling?
This is going to be great.
Oh, this match is it could be the best wrestled match on the entire show. But I have absolutely no issue with either these two's ring work. They both realise they're in a match that hasn't had a significant amount of build or a significant amount of tension put onto it because of the other matches on the card, and they're going to look at that as a challenge, and they're going to try and steal the show.
And also, we're already into territory where this is a match we've seen. They did this one on the opening episode of Dynamite. So they need to differentiate it from that. They need to really shine on pay-per-view. Arguably, you can say this is the signature match of Full Gear, since it was these two and their rivalry that gave that term any meaning. I think you're getting two very determined people, and they're going to try to steal it.
Yeah, so even though this match doesn't have the bite to it in terms of the story that the other two main event matches have, I think just based on ring work alone, these guys will leave a lot of people with a good impression of both of them coming out of it. In terms of who would win, I think there's an opportunity because Park won. I say Park, it's Pac.
Yeah. I'm going to say Pac several times. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Because Pac won the match on Dynamite, it would make sense. I know I'm always ranting against the idea of 50-50 booking, but if you want to have a concept where Page wins this one and then they have a rematch which is going to be like a number one contenders match on an episode of Dynamite, then that could work as long as there's like a definitive end at that point. I don't feel there's a significant need to have one like Pac to win this one and just say, okay, Pac is definitively better than Adam Page and we can move on from this type of thing, especially if, let's say, if Jericho was the champion coming out of it, you're not exactly going to do Jericho against Pac anytime soon. So this feud still has legs to it, and they can actually add a bit more to it with the way they end up booking this match. So I would say that Adam Page is the most likely one to win in my view.
I think
50-50.
I think everything Callum said makes a lot of sense. However, I think they love the fact that Pac is undefeated. Therefore, I think they stay with Pac being undefeated.
He was pinned.
Was he pinned?
In the tag team match between Page and Omega. That got pinned. It was against him and John Moxley. He was pinned.
All right. Cards on the table. I haven't seen a lot of Dynamite. So last I heard, they were booking that he was undefeated. Since he's eaten the loss, Callum's 100% right. I think Adam Page wins.
I hope Adam Page wins, because another thing that needs to be addressed is they've been teasing this whole thing of him being frustrated that he's not winning, and they've already done that story with Kenny Omega. They kind of rushed by it, but they did it, and they did it better. So I don't want a full, long story about that happening again. So I want Page to win. Not that I really want to see Page versus Jericho at like the next pay-per-view or something like that, but that makes more logical sense to me than giving it to Pac and not knowing where to go. But out of all the matches on this card, the one that I think has the most potential to be a draw is this one. Just to avoid that.
I think they've been pushing with Adam Page that he may be leaving the Elite because he's a little pissed off with them right now, that they're all EVPs and they don't see, there's not as much cohesiveness there. And I could see Adam Page being the centerpiece of a inner circle Elite faction warfare kind of match where you're not sure where Page stands. I think you've got to address the elephant in the room that they've done Page and Jericho. So if Jericho wins, it's not like they're going to go right back there. But maybe this is the beginning of Adam Page as a tweener going after people like Jon Moxley, as well as going after people like Cody Rhodes and Chris Jericho.
So the TV ratings just came out, and obviously this is not directly about Full Gear predictions, but it's interesting, and I kind of wanted to talk about it while we're on the air. After all this whole talk about like AEW dominating and struggling, especially last week for both companies with the World Series and stuff like that, this is the difference this week. AEW is ranked number 8 on the cable ratings, and NXT was ranked number 12. But the difference between the two is AEW's rating is a 0.35, NXT's a 0.30. AEW drew 822,000 viewers, NXT drew 813,000. Not much of a difference.
No, and I think this is where it's going to stay for quite some time. I think AEW will always eke out the slight win, but NXT is going to be right there on their heels. And then over time, as AEW stops being the shiny new toy, NXT will gain a win or two every other week.
Well, it is interesting, though, that Full Gear's go-home show didn't put as much of a fight up against NXT as what I'm assuming that they probably were hoping that it would end up being, where it would be like a blowout. People would be like, I gotta watch the Dynamite show. Well, it's not even like it's the go-home show for Survivor Series.
Yeah, but they did phenomenal work with NXT this week, making them seem like stars and feel like stars.
Well, that's where I'm kind of sitting on it, is the idea that, and I might be proven completely wrong about this, but my presumption is that the only reason NXT got the number they got is because they've been on the main roster the last couple of shows. And so they had people who don't typically watch NXT say, oh, what is NXT guys about? Maybe I'll check out that episode on the USA Network. And I think if you don't put them on Raw and SmackDown and you're not building towards this Survivor Series feud, they'd be around about the 600,000, 700,000 level that they've been the previous few weeks. I mean, what's the difference between this week and the previous weeks where they were doing much lower numbers? Oh, they've been on Raw and SmackDown.
Mm-hmm. But is this month going to be enough that they're always going to get those numbers? Because you know they're going to keep being on Raw and SmackDown, at least for the next 2 episodes.
Yeah, for the next 2 episodes. And then as soon as the Survivor Series thing is over and you're not getting the Raw and SmackDown guys, NXT isn't appearing on Raw and SmackDown, the Raw and SmackDown guys don't invade NXT, then the numbers fall.
If that happens, I mean, I would assume that happens no matter what. But if that happens and AEW doesn't change whatsoever, then we know that AEW has got more of a staying power as it is. But if we see like a drop-off next week for AEW, that could be a big thing. Because it could just be a matter of like, wow, their go-home pay-per-view show didn't put up as much of a fight. And then next week people go, I don't really need to see that. I still want to tune into the NXT side. Well, it's not going to be all that great.
Well, you can present the counter argument though that NXT got to be put in front of more eyes than arguably they've ever been before by appearing on Fox and then appearing on an episode of Raw afterwards in front of around about like the 2 million to 2.5 million range, and yet they still couldn't beat AEW in the ratings.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think at least in terms of which one has more sustainability, I don't say it's 100% proven, but AEW seems to have a bit more about it in the fact that it only has one. It obviously has Dark and stuff like that, but it only has one show on television that it can use to promote itself. And it's still pulling bigger numbers than what NXT has been able to do, despite the fact that they could be promoted on Raw, they could be promoted on SmackDown, and WWE has a much more global reach than AEW does.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting.
Yeah.
Are we all going Page?
I would think so.
I'm going Page.
Yeah, I'll stick with Page.
So let's talk about another quick plug here. If you want us to talk more about Paige, I guess. I don't know. If you want us to do anything in particular, head up to Patreon. That is something that I've been mentioning quite a bit lately because we've been having quite a bit of fun with those kind of concepts. And if you don't have a whole lot of spare change, but you want to help out in some way, if you toss $1 our way, it's greatly appreciated. If you toss $5 our way, then that's kind of ad block forgiveness and a way to get on the website. Is one of the sponsors for not only the website, but the podcast too. And the Pick Your Poison tier is the thing that I've been kind of harping on the most. For that, if you donate to the point where you can actually sponsor some kind of a feature, some kind of a gimmick, some kind of a segment of whatever you would like, then you can do whatever, you can think of, you can request. More than likely, we're probably going to end up doing it. And recently we just did 2 of them. We did Mount Rushmore of comedy acts, and we did the fantasy booking of the Invasion story. So maybe we're not talking enough AEW for you and you want us to do more. I know that people have suggested a couple different things here and there. Like somebody had thrown out the idea that they wanted me to do a hierarchy for the website the way that I do with WWE and do that for AEW. It's a little bit harder because they've actually got win and loss records that they are keeping track of. But you would think that would be a little bit easier, but it would change every single week, and I can't kind of just keep changing that every week. But I thought about doing something like that, far as like my personal preferences of a hierarchy. But maybe people want to do something like, for instance, this is jumping ahead of the schedule, but when we do, for instance, the Sexiest Superstars tournament next summer, that's not going to include AEW. It's still going to be the WWE Sexiest Superstars tournament. So we're not going to have the time to do the AEW Sexiest Superstars tournament. And maybe you're looking at the Champs Giving thing right now and you're going, man, I wish they would have just done an AEW Sexiest Superstars thing. If that's the case and you want to try to make sure that we do something similar to that, can't do a whole big multi-week tournament for that. But it's something to keep in mind. So the Patreon is for not only Smark Out Moment, but also Fanboys Anonymous, which again, I'll mention a little bit later on. I've done enough plugs for this moment. Let's move on to what is not going to be the main event, but for all intents and purposes is the main event. The AEW World Championship match. Chris Jericho is defending the title against Cody. The reason I say this isn't the main event is because they've pretty much said that the Lights Out match is going to go on last. So that kind of is the main event. But we've got 2 things to address here outside of just the fact that it's like, oh, is Cody going to win or is Jericho going to win? We've got Cody's announcement, which was if he doesn't win the title, he's never, quote unquote, never going to challenge for the World Championship again. And we also have this up in the air judges situation. First, I want to address the Cody announcement. I think that this is a mistake. I feel like there's 3 possible outcomes for this, and no situation works out well. Cody wins the title, and it's like, well, why did you just change the title already? This kind of hurts the Inner Circle, kind of hurts Jericho, kind of makes the hot potato thing, that whole argument. Cody wins the match by DQ or something stupid, and he doesn't win the actual title, and people go, God damn it, didn't you learn anything from the Hell in a Cell match? This is really stupid. Or Cody loses, and they either don't have him challenge for the title again, which I think is very limiting, or they do the typical crap in pro wrestling that I can't stand, which is we're going to set up a stipulation of absolutely never whatever unless we decide to change our mind. And I don't think that makes AEW look all that great either. I can't imagine this never going to challenge for the title thing is a good idea, but maybe you guys disagree. Are you for it or against it?
I think it's stupid.
It's an entirely unnecessary stipulation.
And this is where I want to go back to what Callum said earlier about them being receptive to fans. I think this is a good first example of them being a little too overreactionary to fan criticisms. A lot of people were saying, oh, Cody just started a company so he can make himself in the main event. So they took it and they tried to make it this, well, throughout history, Bill Watts and Dusty Rhodes were always booking themselves on top. And I hear the criticism. So if I don't win, I'll never do it. But you're going to almost certainly at some point in your promotion's run have to go back on your word. So that's just not great. And I don't like the judges thing either, but more so because of what I brought up earlier. It seems like it's this weird Dusty Rhodes, Jim Crockett Promotions love lair thing where they did this a lot, especially the one that comes to mind is Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat at 1989 Wrestle War. And quite honestly, I think one of the reasons they're doing this is because StarCast that weekend is entirely Crockett based. Jim Crockett will be there, Davey Crockett will be there. I tried to backdoor that, but I couldn't. Ricky Steamboat will be there. I think, spoiler, I think he's one of the judges for sure. This is going to be...
He has to be if that's the case, because they can't put out, like, DDP or something.
They're going to put out DDP. No, I think... So I'll just throw my cards on the table. I think it's DDP, Ricky Steamboat, and Jim Crockett himself. But, I don't know, it just seems... It's a hat on a hat on a hat. And then the judges thing... Okay, so you're either going to have one of the judges do an angle with one of the wrestlers, or you're going to have Cody and Jericho go 60, and I don't see that happening.
No, I don't see... I don't think the judges will get involved, but I like the touch that it adds to it. Just because it's a thing from the Crockett era or the thing like from the NWA doesn't mean that it's a bad idea to bring back. It's, I think Wago put it when he mentioned it in the Megamaniacs, it's like, I like this, do things differently. Don't be WWE. It's not that, and that's not a criticism saying WWE's crap or anything like that. It's just saying we want something other than WWE. Why would we want to watch another 2 hours of WWE?
Yeah, there's potential behind it.
So I think it has legs to it as like something they come back to for big championship matches in the future. Of like, okay, we're desperate to sell this one, especially if there's been maybe obviously this is the first instance, so maybe they're just introducing it. But if they do like future title matches, which maybe one of them ends in a 60-minute draw, and they decide, okay, we can't have this again, so we have to bring the judges in to settle this score once and for all. So they could do something along those lines. I don't think the judges will be involved, or we might see like little, like, you know how they do in sort of boxing matches. I know it's obviously not round based, but they bring up the scores after every round occasionally. So we might be getting some sort of indication of what they're thinking or who they're leaning towards at any given point in the match. Just so you see, oh, they're scoring it towards Jericho, and Jericho's got the heat segment, and when Cody's making his comeback, they're leaning more towards Cody. So I think there's room to play about with. But in terms of this stipulation that Cody can't challenge again, I think it's incredibly problematic in the sense that if Cody does lose, he kind of has to challenge for the title again at some point because he's just too over as a babyface right now. And you can't just let that guy just sit in the mid-card or the upper mid-card and never be able to touch the championship again. So you either have to lead to a situation where the fans are quote-unquote begging Cody to challenge for the title again.
Ugh.
And so that seems a little bit like it just seems a little too forced, or it's a situation where Cody turns heel and decides to renege on his own stipulation because he's a bastard and like he doesn't care what the fans think anymore. But you won't do that while Cody is still as over as a babyface as he is right now. So that wouldn't happen until a couple of months or maybe even a year or so like down the road. So
a simple change of terminology, just saying I won't wrestle for the title while Jericho's champion.
Yeah. That's perfect. That fits immediately. It's like Jericho. It means that Cody has to take a back seat and watch his like. If Cody was to take a back seat and watch Kenny Omega defeat Jericho for the title, then obviously that's another guy from the Elite. Cody could become jealous, and you could run that Cody Kenny Omega jealousy angle that they ran like during Ring of Honor and New Japan stuff because that worked. and it's a fresh audience, more a lot of people in the fresh audience, so it could be a good angle to run with. But having Cody say, like, just come out and flat out say that because of what other people in the past have done, where they've been both bookers and talent, and that's caused issues, that he won't he will never challenge for the world championship if he doesn't win it at his first attempt. It does kind of just lead to a lot of difficulty in the fact that they either have to take the title off Jericho immediately to make sure this issue doesn't extend many months down the road, or they restrict themselves in either they have to stick to a stipulation, regardless of how over Cody gets the babyface, he can't be your world champion, or you have to just renege on your stipulation, and that means that basically it gives the first impression that any of your stipulations don't really matter.
Right.
Which is a trap you don't want to fall into, so many other promotions have done in the past.
Well, in WWE, how many times have we had the whole, if you lose this, you're fired, but you can be back next week type thing?
Oh, this is definitely Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn's last match ever.
Until next week, yeah. And they almost specifically can avoid doing that stuff by just not putting that kind of crap out there. And the fact that they did this, I don't think that they're thinking ahead. I don't think that they're thinking ahead about a lot of different things for AEW. I think that they're kind of going very short-term booking, and this is all going to catch up to them by I don't know, maybe June, and they'll be like, fuck, we went through all of our ideas super quick, and now we're running into some kind of walls. But even a scenario people joke about the whole dusty finish type thing. Even if you had something like Jericho loses because Cody pins him, but his foot was on the ropes, and then it becomes well, Cody won the match, but the referee was kind of obscured, and we're going to review the tape, and, we decide that we're going to end up asking those judges if we should rule this whatever, and then the judges rule that Jericho retains and something, and then Cody can be I won that match, and I'm not going to whatever.
Yeah, but
it'd
you're
still be
still
why
fucking...
is it so complicated,
You're
still fucking around with it.
Yeah.
Whereas it could just be Jericho beats Cody, and Cody's all right. And then eventually, if he wants to win a number one contender shot, literally at any other point in his whole entire freaking career in AEW, then he can win.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with Jericho versus Cody without this stipulation.
No, and that's probably the most egregious thing about it, is that this match has been built exceptionally well, I would say. This whole feud between the Elite and the Inner Circle, and all the segments they've done, all the promos, especially Cody's most recent promo, and that really funny Jericho video that they threw in as well.
Oh,
yeah.
It's just
both of those were great.
They've built this match as well as they probably could have built this match. And just to add this thing onto it is just something that it doesn't need. It was going to draw regardless of it. I don't think it adds any value in terms of a drawing ability that, okay, this might be the only time we ever see Cody Rhodes fight for the World Championship. Because wrestling fans, especially a lot of the ones that will buy the pay-per-view, who watch pretty much any wrestling they can get their hands on, are savvy enough to feel this stipulation doesn't mean anything already. Even if they were to do it and stick to it rigidly for the entirety of AEW's run, they still wouldn't believe some stipulations would happen because they're jaded, and that's what wrestling fans are. They're inevitably suspicious.
Well, I mean, if you do the whole Cody thing and 3 years from now he challenges for the title, people will be like, I knew it. They weren't going to stick to it. I mean, Wago every once in a while still goes. CM Punk return, that kind of thing. Because it's just everything can be undone at some point. No, not everything, but you know what I mean. I don't think anybody really believes that he will never fight for that title. So then does that really actually matter if you don't believe in it? What's more likely to happen? Cody doesn't challenge for that title anymore, or we find out what's in that fucking lockbox from Shane McMahon,
But there is at least the argument to suggest that it makes the match a bit more intriguing by the sense that everyone expected Jericho to just win this because it's his second title defense, but his first title defense on pay-per-view, and so they're never going to put the title on someone else. Whereas this adds a little bit more doubt to the idea, just because, they're not going to have Cody not wrestle for the World Championship again, so they've got to have him win this match. So
Would you guys be annoyed if Cody won?
no,
Yeah, I'd be scared that Jericho's gonna win it back on Dynamite, and we're already hitting weird hot potato territory.
I would be slightly concerned about that, but I think I'm not concerned about it in the sense that I think Cody would be a great champion, and I think he's gotten into a point where he's really, really connected with the crowd in a way that no other superstar has yet. And Jericho is Jericho. Well, first of all, we have to talk about the fact that Jericho's going to be wrestling for New Japan
Yes.
at Wrestle Kingdom. So, and because there still is no relationship between New Japan and AEW that we're aware of, do they want to have him holding the AEW World Championship and then lose to Tanahashi in a match?
Reportedly, there will never be a working relationship. This thing has gone from we're hopeful to they hate us to there's never going to be a relationship between AEW and New Japan.
So would they keep the title in Jericho and have him go to a match where I don't say he's likely to, but there's a good chance that he would lose to Tanahashi?
Did he lose to Okada with the belt?
He wasn't champion at that point.
Ah.
That was when he was gearing up to be the first world champion, but that was still when Okada was just champion on his own. So there's that argument to be made, but there's also just the argument that if Cody's such a big deal at the moment, and he's really over with the fans in a way that most other people aren't on AEW, why not just give him the title? Jericho winning the title in the first place gives it legitimacy because it's Jericho. And maybe there's an argument that he's done what he needed to do with it.
Yeah, and it would be different because I think that ultimately everybody's kind of... I mean, let's put it this way. I think Jericho's retaining. Do you guys think he's retaining?
No, I think Cody's winning.
I think I'm 50-50 on this, but I think because of what they've said, Cody has to win.
That would be different because with a WWE pay-per-view, I think everybody would just be like, all right, Jericho retains.
Yeah, and Cody gets a title shot next month.
Right, yeah, and it's completely thrown out there. And if they do want to separate themselves from WWE, having Cody win that championship so quickly after this whole, Jericho's got to retain it for at least another couple more months or so, would be something that you wouldn't really see coming. And they would just be risking the idea of the criticism of, well, you put the champion on your company owner, whatever, even though he's not the only owner. It's not like Tony Khan won or something. And you draw the criticism of, well, now we knew that he was going to win because he wasn't going to not ever challenge for the belt again. And you throw the criticism of the hot potato. They force themselves to take lumps in any situation, even if they get some positives out of it.
Well, I would understand the criticism about if Cody was to make the stipulation, lose the match, and then challenge for the world title sometime soon, because that's them putting their own foot in their mouth. If it's the criticism about how Cody is a vice president of the company and so giving himself the title, I would say to people making that criticism, get a life, essentially, because it's not exactly like Cody was just given a vice president role, having never worked in a wrestling company before, and is then just being pushed to the title picture. He's one of the top stars in the company, and he's one of the foundations of why this company could even be created in the first place. He's a main eventer, and he deserves to be in the World Championship picture. So just because he is a vice president doesn't mean that it's any less legitimate that he should be a World Championship contender.
Yeah, for that rationale, should Kenny Omega never win?
Yeah, should the Young Bucks never be the World Tag Team Champions? Should I don't know, should Triple H have never been World Champion? Because, he's always been at least from the mid 2000s onwards.
From maybe his fifth reign, he's been with the boss's daughter.
Yeah, so as every title reign that he's had since he married Stephanie McMahon been completely illegitimate?
A lot of people would unfortunately say yes.
Yeah, but also those people were dicks, and we shouldn't listen to those people. So it's just the idea of you want to listen to certain criticism. It's like I was saying earlier, you want to listen to certain criticism, but there's always going to be people that just going to criticize whatever you do. So you just have to just do what you think is right. And if what you think is right is that Cody is really like a big deal as a babyface right now, and he could be a long-term champion going forward for a while, then go ahead and do it. I think we also have to discuss the fact that Jericho, even though he's there in AEW for the next 2 or 3 years, he's 49, 50 years old now. He can't be someone who's going to just hang your company on for the long, long term.
He's doing fine right now. I don't think we need to worry about that.
Well, no, I was going to say, dude, fine. That's not the issue. But the fact is that you want to build up your next top heel star, and they have Jake Hager on their roster. And realistically, Jake eventually it should transition to a point where Jericho is still wrestling, but he's becomes more of a mouthpiece and a driver of Jake Hager towards the world title.
Yeah. And they could do that with Cody as champion.
Yeah.
It could be like Jericho loses the title, and maybe they even want to try to play off of that a little bit and have a rematch on Dynamite to try to draw some TV ratings. And then Jericho fails to win the title back, and you have like Cody versus Sammy at some point. You have Cody versus Jake Hager at like the February event or March event or whatever the hell they end up doing that. Or you could just move on a little bit and step away from the Inner Circle stuff a little bit too, and they could have Cody versus
Pac.
Pac, or
Shawn Spears again.
If you build him up, shit, they could have him against Kip Sabian or something. I don't know, but yeah, they could do quite a bit of different things there, and I'm hoping actually that Cody wins the title, but I'm thinking that Jericho retains.
I'm going to stick with my Cody wins prediction.
And I also think Cody wins, but I also I want to talk about Cody's phenomenal promo.
It was a very, very passionate promo. I think
he's so good at this part of the game, and he stands out like a sore thumb. Moxley stands out like a sore thumb. You don't want to point out the WWE guys, but they stand out so much in terms of their promo ability, and Cody in particular in selling a story through words and other types of action that aren't just bell to bell. He needed this promotion more than anybody else on the roster. Is that fair to say?
Kind of.
I would say that it's not. It doesn't come down to promo ability, even though Cody's obviously an expert on the microphone. It's about the lack of restrictions.
For sure.
It's the system in which these promos are produced and created, which is so much more freer and so much more liberating in AEW than it is in WWE. And I think pretty much anyone who knows the way things operate well enough would be in agreement with that situation.
Well, and I really want to point out that Cody for a long time was being kind of reviled in his New Japan run of, he's just an average guy. I hate that they're pushing him so hard. He gets to shine in this promotion like no other. And I'm excited to see what he can do going forward. Also, they threw out this weird tease of the match beyond. Do you think we're getting some kind of a War Games style of match soon between the Inner Circle and the Elite?
I think they have to do that at some point.
Because he went right there. He said we're going to a match beyond. And if you don't know, that's what War Games used to be called. It was War Games the Match Beyond in the National Wrestling Alliance. So, God, that just stuck out in my mind so much.
They better not call it the Match Beyond.
They're calling it the Match Beyond.
That's a dumb fucking name. It'd be like, Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross sitting there going, the Inner Circle against Elite and the Match Beyond. I'll be like, Jesus God, what the hell?
Well, okay, to be clear, it was War Games, and then once all 10 men were in the ring, it was the Match Beyond War Games, because now the match can end because, submission or surrender.
Nah, they got to give it some other kind of name. It's got to have that, like War Games sounds cool, especially if it's coming out of William Regal's mouth.
War Games, so good.
It'd fucking be great. But they can't call it the Match Beyond and have that be like WWE has Hell in a Cell and the Elimination Chamber and War Games, and AEW has The Match Beyond.
Yes.
That'd be like, really? What fucking lame ass company is this? You know what I mean? We didn't actually talk about not too much about the judges. You had tossed out, Rob, your idea that it's DDP, Steamboat, and who was the other one?
Jim Crockett.
Crockett. I could see Steamboat for sure. I don't think that the other ones are. I kind of feel like they almost need to have like a baby face, a heel, and a tiebreaker.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of see with that sort of perspective. I think I'd have to see like the people they have lined up for StarCast to kind of get a sense for it. I think you have Steamboat as almost. I think he could work as the impartial one because his character's always been like very honourable and calls things down the middle, and he has history with Jericho as well that you can play off of. So I wouldn't say you would go DDP because that's too. He's already aligned himself with Cody in situations before, so he's too biased to be a judge. But you could go with someone like like they had Taz working for AEW recently, so maybe he could be one of them. I'm trying to think of like again, it just entirely depends on who they have brought up for the StarCast event.
It'd be really funny. Eric Bischoff.
That'd be tremendous.
If they
He's
could pull
part
that
of
off, that'd be great.
StarCast.
Yeah.
He's not going to be under contract. Like, so that would be fucking funny if they did that. I'm trying to find a list of StarCast right now, and I can't seem to find anything listed on there. It's a lot of StarCast 3 stuff, but I mean, for the most part, it's like announced superstars, which they have 2 R's, which is just kind of like, meh, I get it. Cody, the Jacksons, Jim Ross, Brandy Rhodes. It's like, all right, well, so it's AEW, but they have like, maybe they can put Dean Malenko in there.
RoboCop.
That'd be great.
This is where CM Punk makes his debut.
Dead or alive, I'm voting for Chris Jericho. I mean, it's mostly just this whole list is just the AEW roster, so they're not playing around too much with the idea of being like, maybe Billy Gunn.
Yeah, that could
He's
work.
in the mix.
Potentially.
Maybe they could play around with Sting, but I don't think so because they have been announcing him for like WWE stuff.
Well,
like
they can get Surfer Sting. WWE doesn't. WWE doesn't own Surfer Sting.
Maybe they could get Black Scorpion. Somebody like a Foley, maybe they could throw in Medusa. She's on this list here. Colt Cabana, I don't think would make sense.
No, please.
Who's Fred Rosser? Wow, that's
Darren Young.
Yeah, Darren Young. He's got like white hair now. It threw me off. Did not see that. Maybe Arn. Maybe he's in the mix for that.
Yeah, Arn could definitely do it. Maybe as the babyface one.
Oh man, they have Steve Mongo McMichael. Please put him on there.
Never mind that shit. Here comes
make him the tiebreaker. It's we got a tie here. Never mind that shit. I mean, they could play around with some of these things and stuff, but I hope that it's not just a gimmick that's there just to be another talking point that really doesn't amount to anything. I hope that they actually have a reason for it, and it's not too convoluted too. We'll see. But that is not the only match that we have that's a main event match, because after that, we're going to have another one. But before we talk about that, I'm going to throw out one more quick plug here for fanboysanonymous.com, my movie review website, where I also talk about some other things in the geek culture spectrum. And pretty soon, I'll be having another Week in Geek up, and I'll be finishing up my other thing for the Patreon for Guest 5, which is the Fanboys Fix It for Pokemon Generation 1. Still working and chipping away at that, so that'll come up at some point next week. I still have to finish out my Pokedex, which is getting way out of hand. I think I have an entirely separate article I can write up now of just stupid ideas that I'm not putting in the mix, but just to give you an idea of like what has been running through my mind. Wouldn't it be interesting if there was a steel lamb Pokemon based off of the idea of steel wool? That's the type of crap that I'm thinking of. So pay attention to that. That's happening on fanboysanonymous.com. And if you want to see more stuff on Fanboys and you want to check out my Terminator Dark Fate rant or anything else like that, just subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow the Facebook and Twitter, hit up the Patreon, hit up the merchandise shops, different stuff like that. So we have one more match to talk about. This is the Lights Out match. And the way that works is it's no DQ. It's also non-sanctioned or unsanctioned. I like the term unsanctioned better, but they're falling into the trap of what WWE does, where WWE has a no holds barred, no DQ, street fight, whatever, Belfast Brawl, Extreme Rules, such and such type of match. And AEW already, after only a couple months of being a company, has, it's non-sanctioned or it's unsanctioned or it's no holds barred or it's no DQ or it's lights out. It's Jon Moxley against Kenny Omega. And since they have put this as a lights out match, it means it does not count towards the win-loss record. And that's another whole thing to talk about. The first question, though, that I do have for you guys, though, what do you think about the whole concept of lights out being like, this match is so dangerous, we want to have this not be officially on the card, even though it's officially on the card and all that?
I'm fine with the concepts. It's just they need to do it very infrequently. I don't mind that being
I don't like that this is Moxley's 4th match, and this is his 2nd lights out match.
Yeah, this is Omega's 2nd lights out match as well.
That's right.
So I understand the idea of like building it around it because these two are experienced with that type of match now, but it's a case of maybe they're just overloading it for the first couple of months to kind of establish, okay, this is one of our signature matches, and then they will stay away from it for a few months to make sure that the next one is well built too. But yeah, I just think that in essence of it, like, have a match that doesn't go on other people's records, and because they just want to beat the crap out of each other and they don't care about the win or loss side of things, I think that's fine. Just don't do it all the time.
And I don't like that you just started establishing the records and you had Moxley kind of cut a promo that basically said you can shove your records up your ass.
I think it's fine to have one character that's like that. As long as
you
not
just
all
started
like
the records, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but his character is that he doesn't care about the records. He'll just fight anyone, and he'll fight them on any situation, or just fight them whether win or losses or matter or not. He just wants to fight people. And as long as you have one character like that and you stick to the one character that's like that, then I'm totally fine with it. And Moxley's the right character to have that sort of attitude. But you don't want to. Everyone else can talk about how important the win-loss record is, and if they don't want to lose that often. But Moxley just comes and goes. He'll just wants to fight, and that's fine. But like I say, you don't want to do these type of matches too often because it just devalues the importance of these types of matches. They're doing too many hardcore matches in general.
Yes, I 100% agree. Like this promotion gave away a free match between Kenny Omega and Joey Janela on YouTube, no less. That was just balls to the wall for what? Oh, because it was cool. It's like two kids playing Universe Mode. Well, I just want to see The Undertaker and Hulk Hogan have a Hell in a Cell match. Why? Because
in the
it's
NXT
cool.
arena.
Yeah.
I know it's they are overdoing the hardcore element, and I don't want it to be typecast to Moxley that he can only do hardcore matches.
Yeah, they're trying to do that.
But maybe he actually wants that, though. I mean, he is from CZW. He could be the type that's like, man, I want to wrestle as many hardcore matches as I can. But that's not saying that that's that they should, but I think it could be him saying that he wants to be that type of guy.
That is true, but I just feel that Moxley is so much more of a diverse performer. And if you have someone like Joey Janela and Jimmy Havoc on your roster who are going to be in those types of matches because that's what they've like predominantly done most of their wrestling career, and you have somebody like Moxley that definitely can do that type of match and do it really well, but can also just be a great bell-to-bell wrestler, you don't want to restrict him too much. Or you don't want to typecast him too much to the hardcore style of things. But having said that, just to put it into a bubble of this match in itself being a hardcore match between Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley, I cannot begin to imagine what type of things they'll have planned out for like spots during this war. I assume it will end up here.
That's my kind of thing with this is I like that this is a hardcore match. I don't like how it's a lights out match where the records aren't factored in. I think that this is better off if they would have put this just as like whatever they want to call a hardcore match. They want to call it no DQ, no holds barred, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just at least pick to something. But if they just had this be like, yeah, it's a fight, it's a street fight or whatever, and it happens midway through the pay-per-view or something like that, then cool. Or even in the main event still. But it doesn't need to be a whole, like, let's protect the records type thing. Because this match can be almost easily the best match of the whole entire card. I'm looking forward to this more than anything else.
Yeah, I think that's probably the attitude that most people are taking into this one. Just due to the two people involved. Even though Kenny Omega hasn't been lighting the world on fire with what he's doing, he's still Kenny Omega.
I was going to throw the question to you, Callum, directly of, is this Kenny's last chance to have a match of the year?
To have a match of the year. I assume in all likelihood, unless they put something together for him on just an episode of Dynamite, but I imagine this would be his best shot of getting a match of the year contender. But maybe it's just, at the moment for Kenny, it's just not really about that. It's just about establishing himself to a more American audience. Because he's obviously was very prominent in New Japan and got this reputation as being the best bout machine and doing so much great stuff. But he hasn't done it to that level yet in AEW. I still think there's more than enough potential, and he's going to eventually deliver on that to that level. But maybe it's just the fact that he's not the main event guy, or he'll be the main event of this show, but he's not the main event guy yet. So he's taking a step back to allow some other people to shine. That's my hope at the very least, because if it's not, then it might be a bit of an issue.
I think this hopefully will be the match we're all talking about coming away from this, because this was the one match I wanted to see at All Out, and I didn't get to see it. I don't know if that threw a monkey wrench in these plans, or if that was always going to be a lights out match, or if they were always going to build towards a lights out match. But I think the hardcore element is going to help it in this particular case. I just don't want to see them overuse it. I think Moxley's got to win.
I don't know. I'm 50-50 on this one more than a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
I could see why both should win, and I could see why both can't lose.
Yeah, that's the big question, really, because obviously making it this lights out match means that it doesn't affect either's record, so either man can win or lose, and it doesn't affect them in terms of just their record. So in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter, but it does matter. It's this weird situation where people watching it, it'll matter who wins for the people watching, but in terms of where they go in their trajectory of who they challenge next, it won't matter because this doesn't affect their records in any way. So I don't know who's going to win this one, which makes it the more exciting match out of anything, really, because all the other ones you can kind of have a sense, whereas this one it could be either guy, and either guy needs it, and both guys can't afford to lose, but both guys need the win.
So Omega can afford to lose, and here's my argument there. There's such a good story in him losing everything and then working himself up to becoming the man again and the best bout machine again, Moxley, if he loses, he just shoved his foot in his mouth. He's, come on, I want to fight. I want to play my music my way, all this nonsense. So he loses this, his stock drops pretty quickly, I think.
I kind of feel the opposite almost, that I think Moxley's pretty protected in the sense that he is a guy who just wants to fight and have not so much killer matches, but to go in there and brawl with people, and whether he wins or loses, he's always going to just try and give somebody the best battle that he possibly could give them. Whereas Omega needs to start establishing himself as one of the guys of AEW. And obviously Moxley needs to be, but I feel Moxley just upon his arrival became one of the guys in AEW. And maybe Omega needs just to, in order to put himself over as a big deal that needs to be watched and see his progression, just needs to win this one. And yeah, I would personally, if I just gun to my head, I would go Omega over Moxley to win this one.
Huh.
I'm very, very slightly leaning towards Omega.
But this is, again, just a coin flip. Like, there's no real reason to suggest it. My ideal situation is this match just put together because it's an awesome match, and it's not going to have any major consequence going forward, but everyone just wants to see this match.
Yeah.
So we just have the match. They both go out there and kill each other. They wrestle the best they've done in their entire time in AEW, the entire time this year. And they, go to war. Somebody wins. They don't want to shake hands afterwards, but they show some element of respect between each other afterwards, and then they go their separate ways. And then they only ever come back. They come back to this a long time in the future when one of them's the world champion.
Yeah, I agree. If this isn't the match of the night, what do you guys think is going to be?
It depends on what your taste is, really, but I think from a storytelling capacity, it will be Jericho against Cody. In terms of just athleticism and just putting a great match together, it will either be the Young Bucks versus Proud and Powerful, or Adam Page against Park.
Exactly what he said.
I'm just going to throw Page and Pac out there as not being one of those, but I kind of agree. Those are the three to look forward to the most: the Bucks and Ortiz and Santana, Omega Moxley, Cody and Jericho. Any other thoughts you guys have on Full Gear, or that we didn't talk about? You think there's going to be any more matches? Do you think that they're going to have any big surprises, people showing up?
I think the only extra match they might put on a buy-in is something to do with the librarian getting beaten up. Just get Peter Avalon out there and just have him be killed by somebody.
Maybe Virgil's the judge. I don't know. Like, they offered him unlimited Olive Garden breadsticks. He has to take it.
I'd be happy to see like Avalon lose against Jungle Boy or something. Give Jungle Boy a little bit of shine, because at the moment he's struggling with the fact that he has to team with Marco Stunt, which means they will lose most of their matches because Marco Stunt will get pinned in most of their matches.
And
not into that.
Dinosaur's down at the moment.
So give him some wins as a singles performer as well, just to balance it out.
I'm excited.
Right.
I'm more excited after this discussion than I was coming into it, so I guess that's a good thing.
I'm exactly the same.
I'm looking forward to it, at the very least, just because of some of the matches that I've got scheduled.
I think that this has a lot of potential, but at the same time, I really question some of their decisions, and I don't want to have too much anticipation and hype for it and then be disappointed. So I guess I'm mitigating my expectations, sort of.
Just like every WWE show.
Wrong. But WWE, I tend to go into it thinking it's going to suck.
Okay, well that's a bit more of a positive then.
That's a positive then.
Yeah, we don't know. They haven't taught us to expect them to suck just yet.
No, what I have expected now in AEW is that at some point in the night, I'm going to feel tired of the same flippy type stuff. I got a feeling I'm going to have to try to be a little bit more reserved in my judgment on some of it. Not only just for the fact that there's the whole Bleacher Report type thing, and, I'm sure that they wouldn't really want me to be like, this is the worst fucking thing ever or something like that. But also the fact that I think that the community for internet fans out there is so quick to jump on everything, where if I were to say, like, again, I'm not expecting Riho to have an amazing match with Sakura. And if that happens and it's great, then I'll put that down as being a highlight. But if it's not good, I'm going to say that I don't like it. And I don't like the whole concept that since this is a new company and a lot of people are very much like black or white, you have to love everything. Or if you don't like everything about it, then it's the worst thing ever and you're the horrible person and whatever. I'm really not looking forward to the idea that I might be like, yeah, Riho sucks as a champion and I didn't like her match, and people to just be like, God, you fucking WWE Marq or something.
No, well, when I take the perspective of AEW, I kind of walk into it thinking there's going to be some stuff on the show that I really, really like and some stuff that I really don't like. But the stuff that I really don't like, someone else is really going to like, and some of the stuff that I really like is somebody's just not going to enjoy at all. I kind of get the sense, and maybe I'm being too harsh on WWE in this regard, but with WWE, the matches are typically very good, and there's some matches that are very bad, but they're all kind of the same format of match. Whereas with AEW, I feel like there's a bit more variety. At least, like, there's going to be some stuff which is some type of match which I'm not going to enjoy, but I can see other people enjoying it, and some matches where I'm going to enjoy and some other person's going to turn the nose up to it.
Well, when did WWE become formulaic on the kind of two smaller guys doing suicide dives?
Oh shit, I'm so sick and tired of Tope, Suicida, and both fucking companies.
Mamma mia.
God damn it. Stop doing the fucking suicide dives. Everybody.
Yeah.
For like a year, nobody does a suicide dive, and then it fucking matters again. Ugh.
I think that's a good place to end it.
Yeah, he struck a nerve with that one. So I did all my plugs outside of the fact that obviously if you want to know what's happening during Full Gear, I'll be doing the live coverage on smark@moment.com, and then of course later on in the week when that happens, then we're going to do our post show. So stay tuned for that. But these guys have plugs to talk about as well. Callum?
So the main plug, as usual, is 2001: A Wrestling Odyssey, which is our retro podcast series. We go back to the year 2001, check out all of the events and break down the news that was happening at that point in time, the year that wrestling changed forever with WWE taking a monopoly over the entire organization. And yeah, we've got our editions every single month. The October one we just most recently did. November, we can look forward to Survivor Series 2001, the Alliance versus WWF in the winner takes all match, as well as a few other bits to do with the company whose name I just keep forgetting, like stumbling on. XWF. Rob is on top of that side of things. I expect Rob to be a little bit more prepared on that side of things than I am. But and also maybe a touch on Rebellion and a few other bits of news that took place that month. You can also, when you're checking out all of the stuff on smarkmo.com, make sure you check out the power rankings as well, and follow me on Twitter at Wigmeister14.
All right, and for me, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DudeFelice. Check out everything I'm doing, whether it's e-wrestling news, WrestleZone.com and the WrestleZone Daily, or Fightful.com, which is where I'll be stationed throughout most of Full Gear weekend. And I'll be doing all the StarCast coverage, doing all the pay-per-view coverage. Should be a good time. I'm looking forward to it. And then I'll see you guys back here Saturday evening for one hell of a podcast.
Yeah, that post show is the next thing you're going to be hearing from us. Then after that is going to be the hot tags. And then after that, we're not entirely sure. So here's a little bit more information about that. I mean, we do have the Champs Giving tournament going on right now. That'll wrap up at some point. Go ahead and vote on the Champs Giving round 2, which is up, or round 3, which is up. I can't remember now.
It's
whatever
two.
round
It's
is.
round 2.
There you go. Yeah, the Elite 8 is coming up at some point. But the setup for next week kind of depends on a lot of what happens this Friday. SmackDown is apparently going to be pre-taped, and they're going to air it later on, or they might air SmackDown live and pre-tape Raw. I'm not entirely sure how they're going to do that, but they are billing it as Raw and SmackDown are happening. That explains a little bit of why they didn't do 205 Live. Although, if you check the spoilers for 205 Live, I don't entirely know why they did that when they had access to so many other people. So that's another whole story for another day. But if they announce on Raw and on SmackDown during these tapings and everything the full breakdown of the Survivor Series teams, which I highly, highly doubt that they're going to do, then we will probably do Call of the Spot. But we could also, as an alternative or a supplemental thing on top of that, possibly do Time Machine Dream Team. And if you don't know what Time Machine Dream Team is, we haven't done it before, so maybe you won't know. It's this thing that kind of spawned off of this mishearing of that Time Machine Dream match thing that Rob had thought out there. But it's kind of, let's try to form Survivor Series teams based off of themes of people that are all throughout history. So you could say something like, well, I wanted to do the Giants team and have Andre the Giant and Big Show and Giant Gonzalez and whatever. Or you wanted the full version of Money Incorporated and you wanted Ted DiBiase and JBL and so on and so forth. So we might play around with that concept a little bit and do that at some point next week. Or we might do the Call of the Spot. Or something might pop up that we need to do something else. You know, maybe we end up changing things around and doing superstar scores because we haven't done that this year. We'll see. But if you have any suggestions, drop them in the comment section below. And also, in the comments, let me know your thoughts about that whole Patreon exclusive dark match thing. I used to do dark matches and do it only on iTunes and Stitcher. And I want to bring the concept back. I don't know how the hell I'm going to be able to add another thing onto my schedule, but I really kind of want to put that out there as something for Patreon only. And the main one that I want to do to really draw into that is to do that mock draft of all time. So unless somebody donates to the Patreon, specifically to the Pick Your Poison tier, and requests that earlier than when we get that situated, that might be recorded at some point over the next couple of weeks. And if you are interested in subscribing for a Patreon only type of thing, and you would want that to be one of those tiers for access to it, then keep that in mind and let me know. Because the more support that we get for that, the more that I'll try to block off my schedule, and we'll do that. But that will all depend on plenty of other things that are happening, and we don't even know what's happening tomorrow on SmackDown and stuff. So stay tuned, and we'll sort things out, and we'll let you know when we know. But thank you for listening. Thank you for all your support. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for all your suggestions and everything else that's happening. That's it for this episode, though. This has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.